Let's talk about all the horror movies I watched in July. I watched 10 horror movies and horror adjacent movies this month, and I enjoyed a lot of them. The first movies I want to talk about are the Fear Street Trilogy, which premiered on Netflix earlier this month, and I actually did an in-depth review, my thoughts on the series, but basically I loved it. I loved all of them. So basically this series is based on the Fear Street novels written by R.L. Stine, which were hugely popular in the 90s, and it's a series of young adult horror books. So this series was adapted for Netflix, and it captured the essence of the books very well, I think. It's the perfect summer horror movie to watch. It's filled with nostalgia. It has homages to Scream and Friday the 13th. There's interesting kills, and I really enjoyed some of the characters. The story is about the town of Shadyside, where the town has been cursed for centuries, and the curse is reawakened in 1994, and this group of friends, they have to basically band together to stop this curse in order to save one of their own. I thought it was really well done. I love part 2 the most because I think the storyline was the strongest. I loved the two sisters. I loved their storyline, and I thought it was really sweet and heartfelt, and it actually made me emotional towards the end. I think these films are a blast, and I think that every horror fan can find something they enjoy in each of them, and I really hope Netflix gives us more. The next movie I want to talk about is Sun, which is currently streaming on Shudder. Sun stars Halloween's Andi Matichak as a young mother who is running from her dark past, and it's finally catching up to her and her son. This is from the director of The Canal, which is an Irish film that a lot of people enjoyed. I personally didn't like it a lot, but also that was years ago. I have to revisit it. If you hear any noises, that's my dog being a freaking monster. He is like shaking his head back and forth like a shark on my sock. He's like just ready to kill that sock. Sorry. Anyway, Sun, it really surprised me because when I saw the previews for Sun, I wasn't interested. I thought Andi Matichak seemed way too young to be playing a mother, and I just thought we were gonna get a regular same old creepy kid story, and I was wrong. First of all, Andi Matichak really impressed me with her acting, and I thought she came off so natural as a mother in this. You could see the chemistry and the bonding between her and the boy who played her son. I thought she was fantastic. It was so believable, and she just gave a really strong performance, and that's what kept me going with this movie. I wanted to see her be okay, and it was really nice to see her leading this movie aside from Halloween, because Halloween is the only thing I've seen her in. So this movie gave me a lot of excitement for her career, and I hope she gets more starring roles because I think she's really talented. The only thing I really had a problem with was Emil Hirsch. He plays a detective in this who's investigating these weird occurrences that have happened to Andi Matichak's character. I normally like Emil Hirsch. I love him in Autopsy of Jane Doe. I think he's a fantastic actor, but this, he was giving me nothing. He was just nothing. Dead. I was so unimpressed by him. It was like he was talking to a wall. He didn't seem that into it, so I didn't like it. I didn't like his performance in this, but I thought the story was really interesting. There's like cult stuff, and it's just not what I expected at all. And I just thought overall it was really unique and entertaining. I highly recommend this one. It's on Shudder. Don't think it's just gonna be another creepy kid movie, because it's so much more than that. The next movie I watched was Jaws from 1975. This is a summer classic, and it's a classic for a reason. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's one that never gets old. The performances, the cinematography, the score, everything in this film is brought together so well, and the actors, fantastic. There are so many iconic moments in this movie that it's almost ridiculous. It has 3 perfect arcs, and it's just like it all comes together perfectly. In the end, everything that happens for a reason. Steven Spielberg vastly improved on the source material, which was the book that I actually just read. She made the characters so likable, and you really were rooting for them, and you really want them to survive, and they're so layered. Like Quint, we first meet Quint, he's very mysterious. He just seems like a rough around the edges fisherman, but you learn he has a deep history history with why he doesn't like sharks and why he wants revenge on this shark with that whole amazing monologue of the USS Indianapolis. It's just a fantastic film, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I truly do believe it's the perfect film. Perfect horror film. And it is a horror film. Do not fucking tell me it's not. A man-eating shark? Get the fuck out of here if you think that's not a horror film. And also, follow that up, I watched a documentary which is more horrifying than any horror film I've ever watched, and that was Finn, which is directed by Eli Roth, and this is on Discovery Plus. This premiered during Shark Week, and it's horrific. Eli Roth takes us through the history of shark finning and how it's essentially eradicating shark population, and it's all for fish soup. He shows us different fishermen that are actually legally hunting these sharks and finning them, and it's so disturbing. Like, we actually see sharks being finned, and it honestly made me so upset. I almost started crying. It's the most disturbing thing I've ever watched, and it's so sad. I think everybody needs to watch this movie. Please go into this with caution, because if you have a weak stomach, like, they actually show these animals, these creatures being killed, slaughtered, and it's just hard to watch. I had to take some breaks, and I just think it's really well done, and I'm glad that Eli Roth is bringing attention to this. I just really hope that more people see it because it's really good. Another film I watched this month is Messiah of Evil from 1973, also on Shudder. This movie was weird. It's very weird. It's about a young woman who is searching for her missing father, and her search takes her to this coastal town that's pretty mysterious, and it's overrun by this weird cult of undead people, and it's bizarre. It's so uncomfortable. I just felt weird. Like, I just was weirded out and confused, and it feels very surreal at times, the way it's shot. It just made me feel even more uncomfortable, and I didn't know what was going on. And there's some really scary scenes where there's one scene where a woman is in the grocery store and she encounters these ghouls, and then there's another scene where a woman is in a movie theater and she encounters these ghouls, and that scene creeped me out. I love movie theater horror scenes in horror. Please let me know your favorite movie theater scenes in horror movies down below, because I just love that whole gag, I guess. This wasn't a favorite of mine. I feel like it's one I need to watch multiple times to really fully understand it. I think it was a well done movie. It made me feel uncomfortable and disturbed and unsettled, and I think that's what they were going for. I love the setting of this weird, creepy town, but it was just, I guess it was like too bizarre for me, for my liking, but I want to give it another shot eventually and rewatch it, because sometimes you pick up things you didn't see on your initial watch. I think it's worth watching if you want a weird experience. Another movie I watched this month was A Classic Horror Story on Netflix, and this one really surprised me. So this, I watched nothing, no previews, I didn't really read about it, and I kind of went in blindly, which I'm glad I did. So this story follows a group of individuals who are carpooling across country on a road trip to get to their various destinations, and they get into an accident, and when they wake up from their accident they realize that they're stranded in the middle of the forest, and there's no road in sight, and there's no phone signal, and they're stuck. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to get out of the situation, and there's a creepy house right next to them and a creepy cult that just happens to be nearby too. So it is super creepy. It pays homage to horror films like Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and there's a lot of folk horror elements that felt very much like Midsommar in The Ritual and The Wicker Man, and it goes someplace that I was not expecting. I didn't particularly like it, but I thought it was interesting and unique, and at times feels very meta. There's a character in this who's a horror fan, and I loved those little moments where he's saying stuff. They're sitting there stranded in their car, their cell phones don't work, there's a creepy cabin. He's like, we're in a classic horror story. So I just liked those little moments, and I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think everybody's gonna like where this film goes, but I thought it was interesting and bold. Watch it. It's on Netflix, and it's quick, it's short. Watch it with subtitles, please. I know some people legitimately can't watch with subtitles, but people who refuse to watch foreign films just because they don't want to read need to grow up. because you're missing out on some good shit. Next, I watched Hideaway from 1995. Now this is based on a this is based on a Dean Koontz novel of the same name. This movie, I originally saw it back when I was like 8 years old, and it fucking terrified me, okay? I was traumatized, and I'll tell you why. So this story follows a young father. Is he young? I mean, has Jeff Goldblum ever been young? It's Jeff Goldblum. He's a family man. His daughter is Alicia Silverstone, and they're driving down the road one night and they crash and their car barrels down into the river and Jeff Goldblum's character dies. But he's resurrected when they bring him to the hospital somehow. And when he is brought back to life, he starts having these terrifying visions of this man murdering women. So he realizes he has a telepathic connection to this serial killer who's played by Jeremy Sisto. This movie, when it opens up with a character, a bunch of it's so disturbing when it starts, and I was like, whoa, this is really dark. Why was I allowed to watch this when I was 8 years old? Because there's a lot of creepy imagery and religious imagery stuff that I didn't really get. But so basically, Jeremy Sisto's character kills some people, and then he sacrifices himself, as you would say, because he wants to go to hell. And then they show how he goes to hell, and it's like this weird transportation thing through light. When I was 8 years old, I thought this was a true story, okay? I thought this is what really happens when you die, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't die like this. And at 8 years old, I had an existential crisis about death and life and where the fuck I was gonna go when I was gonna die. I still don't know where I'm gonna go, but I hope it's not like this. Even in 1995 with really cheap graphics that have not aged well, it's still scary. I don't want this for my afterlife. But anyway, aside from that moment that traumatized me and overcoming that fear that I had since childhood, this movie is really dark. It's really scary. It's definitely very 90s, and there's some like moments where Jeff Goldblum is seeing things through the eyes of the killer. It becomes Jeff Goldblum in his shoes, so like the scene is playing out like Jeff Goldblum is doing the murder, so it's like that paranoia feeling, like you don't know what to believe, it's unreliable, and it's really creepy. And Jeff Goldblum, Jeff Goldblum as a serial killer? I'm sorry, but anyway, Jeremy Sisto as a serial killer? I mean, I'm not even just into the serial, I'm just into Jeremy Sisto from the 90s because he's really fucking hot in this. You might remember, he was in Wrong Turn later on in life, and he's a dad. He's a daddy, and so is Jeff Goldblum. And I love these daddies. Daddy Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum in this movie, even though the subject matter is kind of ridiculous, Jeff Goldblum gives it his all. I believed every word Jeff Goldblum was saying, every line he was delivering, no matter how cheesy it was. I believe Jeff Goldblum, and I wanted Jeff Goldblum to succeed. It's just a really good hidden 90s gem. More thriller, psychological thriller than horror, but if you ask me, it's full-on horror because that shit scared the fuck out of me when I was little. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have watched it when I was little. Anyway, it's really good. If you like Jeff Goldblum and you want to see some telepathic serial killer stuff, that's for you. I think it's on Hulu right now, and you might be able to find it on Amazon Prime. Another film, which I don't know if I've talked about all of the films that I watched, I'm just talking about the ones that stood out to me. The last film I watched in July is Carnival of Souls. So this is a classic film from 1962. It's available on HBO Max, and you need to watch it. This is a black and white horror film, and it opens with a group of women who are drag racing with another car full of people, and there's an accident, and a lot of people die, but this one woman, she miraculously survives, and she decides to uproot her life and leave to go live in another town where she gets a job at a church as an organist. But she's plagued by these horrifying visions that she doesn't understand, and she's being stalked by this creepy, ghoulish looking man, and she also experiences weird periods where no one can really hear her. The score for this movie is so eerie and unsettling. My chest was so like heavy with dread while I was watching this because of the score. It's so well done, and this poor woman, you're just scared for her, and you're like wondering what the hell's going on? How is she going to get out of this situation? And it just felt very Twilight Zone-esque. There are sequences in this that are very dreamlike and surreal, and it's very disorienting, and you just feel really uncomfortable, and I think the director did an amazing job of putting us in the shoes of the protagonist because she doesn't know what's going on, and the ghouls are terrifying. Now, I've read that this film has influenced David Lynch and most notably George Romero, who would go on to make Night of the Living Dead in 1968, where he created his own ghouls known as zombies and basically created the modern zombie that we know and love today. And while I was watching it, you can tell. There was literal scenes and moments from Carnival of Souls that were used in Night of the Living Dead. It's just really well done, and I think that if you're someone who shies away from films from the 60s, black and white films, don't. This one is so good, and I feel like you can clearly see the influences it's had on other filmmakers and other films that we love in the genre, and it's an important watch, and it's legitimately scary and well done, and it moves pretty briskly, and I highly recommend it if you have HBO Max. And there you have it. Those are all of the horror movies I wanted to talk about this month. I think I had a pretty good month of movies that I actually enjoyed versus last month. Last month I barely watched any horror movies. I watched more TV than anything. Let me know down below if you've seen any of the movies I talked about. Let me know what movies you watched, and let me know what you plan on watching next month if you've been to the movie theater. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I'll leave all my social links down below if you want to connect with me on there and talk about more spooky shit. And I will catch you next time, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.